The Highland Hills tower the skies. But the shadows they cast draw the spirits near. After all, tomorrow.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Now, we are earlier tonight. I know we're earlier tonight. We usually go live at 10:15 at night. But I have a special guest, Leonard Lowe, coming on the show tonight. And Neil Story's actually told me so much about you, Neil, and I had to get you on. And I've been looking forward to this because I've been watching your videos. Now, guys, I know a lot of you will watch this back because it's early in America because a lot of my subscribers are American. Leonard's links are below, so could you please go and subscribe to his channel, please? And could you also check out his book, which is in the description before, the WEEM Witch, which I've just ordered, and I'm looking forward to it coming. See, I'm actually looking forward to that. So, Leonard, thank you so much for coming on the show. How are you tonight?
Shall I tell you the end of the book and spoil it for you?
No, don't. It's. I'll tell you, I bought it.
She dies in the end.
No, it looked really interesting. I've heard that tale. I heard that tale a long time ago, the WEEM Witch, and I thought to myself, that's a really good, interesting book. So I've ordered it. So hopefully, when the winter months really kick in and it's terrible snow and it's cold outside, I can sit and read it. I do like a good book, I must admit. See all these like ebooks and stuff like that. You're better with paper, you are better with paper. So Leonard, where will we start, guys? We were talking before we come on, guys, and we were talking about all different locations round about Scotland. Can you tell us a wee bit about yourself, Leonard?
Oh, I'm born and bred in a wee village in Fife called Upper Largo. Yeah. I left Largo in about 1987 and went down south to London. And I spent the next 24 years there building film sets for films and BBCs and things, and then commercial buildings. And then I finally, 10, 11 years ago, I came back home. In 2006, I wrote my first book. It was The WEEM Witch.
Yeah.
And which you just mentioned, and since then I've now got another 7 books, and the WEEM Witch is relaunched again with another publisher. It's in its 4th reprint now, so which is really good.
I noticed that. I found that strange actually, because when I searched your book, it came up like a white cover, and then the one came up with a kind of bluer cover.
We've got.
Yeah, that's up.
That's the original.
Yeah,
that sells on the internet now for about 130 quid.
Yeah, I wondered why that one was so expensive. That's the one that I bought. That's the one that I bought. Yeah.
Well, the reason, I mean, it's done well on its own. I mean, it's sold in its tens of thousands, but the WEEM Witch since 2006, there's loads that's happened. I mentioned a witch from St. Monans that no one knew about. Basically, I'm an archivist. I've got books going back to the 1600s of every witch trial that's possibly known. I've got it here in its original form.
Wow.
I've got letters, manuscripts. I've got many. I collect items from the witch hunts. I've now got over 40 items directly from the hunts. This is with torture tools to manuscripts. With this, construct my stories and books on the witch trials, of which the WEEM Witch has now been reprinted with another publisher, and we've got an extra 60 pages and loads of new photographs, and the update on what's been found and what's been known since the 2006 book. I mentioned a minor witch in the WEEM Witch in 2006 called Maggie Morgan. She was a witch from St. Monans. Her story is entwined into the pit of Weem witches, which the
Yeah.
Weem witch is all about. But since then, this year, in fact, she just had a street named after her in
Wow.
St. Moniz. So I'm very proud of that. Finally,
It's
people are taking notice.
it's in Scotland. Obviously, the witch trials were a big thing. Obviously, across the world, the witch trials. We all know what happened in America and stuff like that when they first went to America and stuff like that. But I'm quite close. I have a question to ask you. What do you know about the Rabbi Burns witches? What do you know anything about that? I mean,
Yes, the Rabbi Burns witches. I know this. I know the poem. But what you've got to look at with Rabbi Burns is he died a very young man. He was in his early 30s when he died of pneumonia. Now, how did he die? Well, he died because his doctor, he had the flu, and he went to his doctor, and his doctor prescribed him to lie in a south-running stream 3 times a day, naked. Which today, this would be frowned upon by a doctor. But that was a way of avoiding witchcraft. Witches can't pass south running waters, and this is what he was to lie in. So the doctor's verdict of the day actually finished off our greatest bard.
It's he was brought up with Rabbi Burns and the witches chasing him across the bridge and stuff like that. But I always wondered how true it really was. Obviously, it's a lot. I know the area.
Ayrshire had many witch trials. Renfrewshire and around that area had many witch trials, and I mean it's just folklore. And in the dark nights when you've got nothing but a candle to keep you illuminate your house, it was the most terrifying of feelings that there was something else there bar you. And this is what spurned these stories that the bard picked up on and wrote his enormous poet.
Poem. How many witches would you say was sentenced to death in Scotland?
It's unclear. I've got books from the early 1700s that talk about the witches of Scotland, and there are hundreds of thousands getting burnt, hundreds of thousands. Wow. I've got visitors coming to Scotland in 1650 on their way to St Andrews, and in Fife, they're writing in their diaries that they've seen over 120 witches burnt in a month in Fife. Another one saying 40 in a week. These are huge figures. The 100,000, I forget that. That's utterly nonsense. I mean, that'd be like one quarter of the population. But the actual figures we know of was there was about 4,000 trials, 4,000 thereabouts. What you got to acknowledge is this hunting witches became utterly tiresome.
Oh yeah.
And in parish records, if you read old parish records, you come to this amazing statement which just says some witches burnt today. Some, no names,
I've
no
heard
amount.
about that. I've heard about that.
So, I mean, this is how tiresome it became. It was a huge expense on the parish. Once they found a witch, to get her tried was a nightmare. And meanwhile, she's sitting in a jail costing money, feed and whatever they're giving her, and protection. It cost money. Once a witch was arrested, they couldn't wait to get rid of them so they could get out the jail.
Of course, a lot of them were. Some of them were witches, and some of them weren't witches. Some of them were accused of being witches just because they didn't do like favors to local men and stuff like that. Is that true?
Aye. Here's a horrible tale for you. My ancestor, way back in let me get this right now. 1597. Over in Cellardyke near Anstruther, was accosted by a woman who claimed that she'd met another wizard who claimed she was a witch. And so therefore, she was dragged into the Pit and Weem trials, and she'd been accused by 2 witches, so there's no way she's going to get off of this. And she disappears from history. It looks like she died in the prison cells of Pit and Weem with a few others that also died. She's just never mentioned again. But the thing was, the stigmata of being accused of witch ran through the family. So we skip forward a few years. 1644.
Yeah.
This woman's daughter was pulled up in a witch hunt in St Andrews and burnt. And the reason she'd been burnt is because the Sheriff of Fife's son had taken a fancy to her, had taken her out. She'd got pregnant. His father had found out, threw him in Edinburgh, and his father dealt with my ancestor. And within 2 weeks, she was burning as a witch in St Andrews. That's how you got rid of your problems.
That's just terrible. That is just.
It happened.
It just shows you the genocide that did take place there. When you really think about it,
it's showing you the power of the gentry and the gullibility of ministers.
Yeah, it's absolutely disgusting if you really think about it. I mean, you think about all the people that, not just in Scotland and England and Wales and Ireland, the people that were murdered just because they wouldn't do stuff.
Mentioned Wales and Ireland. What's surprising about Ireland is, for being such a religious country, even today it's such a religious country.
Oh yeah,
they only had about 6 witch trials in the whole of the country. 6, and I think there's 3 cases where they actually came to killing the witch. In Wales had exactly 6 witch hunts in the borders of Wales. England had far more, but it was very shy in convicting them. They had thousands of cases of witches, but then convicted about 300 to 400. But Scotland, we're talking about 4,000.
I will say this. I will say this, Leonard. There is a lot of tales. I mean, in my village, there's the tale of the witch that died, and now she haunts the glen, right? But if you actually research it, there's actually a woman in the chat named Sharon. She's actually in the chat there. She actually comes to the same village as me, and she'll know the story. And it's they called her a witch, and they said she haunts the glen. What it was I think it was in the 1600s. What was that? Was it the Black Death? What was that? The Black Death, or it was some weird virus?
Well, there was the plague came here in 1330. And it came back in the 1400s, and it really came back in 1660. Samuel Pepys writes about it.
Right.
But
the 1600s.
It's visited us about 3 big occasions.
Yeah, it'd be the 1600s, and round about then, what happened was, it's actually quite interesting. It's in the storybooks. I actually researched it, and I found out actually what happened. Supposedly there was this witch, a traveller, and she was going to place a curse on the town, and she died. So they buried her in the woods to the entrance to the village. And still at this day, there's a big stone, and there is a grave there. There's a grave there. But I actually found out, for some historian friends for the village, she had that disease. And what they stayed well away from it, and what they did is they burnt her wagon. They burnt the wagon because they didn't want it to spread, and they moved the body and they buried it in the woods. Hence, she was actually a gypsy. She was a gypsy. But she got the name as the witch because it was known as the haunted, which is still at this day, it's weird. I'll give you that, because I've been up there at night and it's weird. But I think it's maybe just a soul that's no at rest because she wasn't given like a kind of a decent burial kind of thing, you know. And there'll be a lot of witches like that, and people that said they were witches didn't get a burial. They just get burned, didn't they?
Usually at crossroads.
Yes.
Crossroads, if they had any doubt in them. Now, I'll match your plague witch with another plague witch. I wrote about it in my book, the low down in witches,
yes.
which came out a couple of years ago. Dundee. Now, Dundee, there's a place in Dundee called Bonnet Maker's Hill, and it was up in the hill area of Dundee, and the plague hit Dundee, about 1660, about the same time you're talking about, the plague came. What you got to remember is that Oliver Cromwell had just done his 9 years ruling Scotland and then died.
Right.
And his son took over and he got ousted. And then Charles II comes back in. Now, to appease Charles II, through the Cromwell years, witch hunts died down to next to nothing. But when Charles II comes back on the throne, to appease him, just like his father and James VI, we had a splurge of witch hunts again, which he approved of. And then we're back into business. This is another spike of the witch hunts. But this came along at the same time as the plague. Of course, you had to blame the plague on something.
Yeah.
And in Dundee at the time, the place was starving. They were run out of food, but the town itself was starving. Yet on the hill there was a bothy, a small stone bothy. There were 2 girls in it, and they lived on this bonnet maker's hill. And they were fairly healthy, and no one could fathom, because they never came into town to deal with people. People were getting suspicious and going, "Why are this witchcraft? This is witchcraft," because they're not coming to the market. So anyway, proper Frankenstein style, they got a mob together with burning torches, and up the hill they went to face them. And they got to the 2 girls, and they wanted to declare how they're feeding themselves. And so they invited them in, and this I hope nobody's having their tea at the moment. There's a wooden box in the corner, and so they go to the wooden box and open it up, and goes, "There, this is what we've been eating." What they've been eating was these great big 6-inch long black slugs. They've been picking them out the grass round Dundee Bonnet Maker's Hill, and just boiling them and eating them. And this is what they were surviving on, living on slug.
And it makes you want some licorice, doesn't it?
Well, it got them off, because they were going to be killed. This mob was going to have them. But then they saw what they did and how disgusting they were. And they thought, quite ingenious. And you're not going to believe this. You know that Hugh Fernie, what's his name, the chef?
I know exactly who you're talking about. Yeah,
Whittington.
I know who you're talking. Yeah, I know who you're talking about. Yeah.
He's got 2 recipes for slugs.
Every time I look at licorice now, I'm going to go, those 2 damn witches.
He honestly has 2 recipes for cooking your own slugs. And
the French eat snails and stuff like that. The French.
That's because they're so lazy. That's all they can catch.
Aye, I know. It's. I mean, what's that monument? Is it Meg's Monument? You know the one I'm talking about. It's in Scotland.
In Perth.
Yeah.
Maggie Wall.
Got it.
Maggie Wall, yes.
Yeah.
Again, in the book I've just showed you, Lowdown on Witches, I have a chapter to her. Nobody knows to this day. There's no evidence to anybody called Maggie Wall whatsoever. Nothing.
Yeah.
Yet somebody jumps out the woodwork and paints this statue every year, and they've been doing it for years. Nobody knows why. But I've got evidence of 2 witches in the area. One had the first name Maggie, and the other one had the surname Wall, and they were both killed together. So I don't know if somebody's put both their names together and come up with Maggie Wall. There also is on an ancient map, there's a Maggie Wall Way. So there's this named Maggie Wall Way, named after an ancient witch we don't know about. We'll never get to the end of it, but we know that Ian Brady, the Moor murderer, used to hang about there. And was very
I heard that. I'd actually heard that. I did hear that.
He was fascinated by that.
Can I ask you, is there anything that you know of, like witches that you know of, that have actually stated, "Yes, I am a witch and I decurse you all"? When she's been getting burned at the stake, when records were getting rut, did she say that I'm going to curse you? Because you see a lot of movies portray witches that way, when they're going to get like burnt at the stake and stuff. They go and say they're going to curse you and all that kind of stuff.
I've got a book. I've got it behind me. There we go. I've got a book here.
Right.
Can you see this book? This book is by Sir George Mackenzie. It's 1687. And George Mackenzie, Sir George Mackenzie, was, we'll know him as Bloody Mackenzie now. He was the man that, the judge that went hunting for the Covenanters and killed them all in Greyfriars Cemetery. Well, he starved them all. But he wrote the Laws of Scotland. Can you see that there? He wrote the Laws on Witchcraft.
Yes.
This book is from 1687. It's the Laws of Scotland, basically. And in this book is the laws against witches. Now, Sir George Mackenzie, although an awful character if you're a Covenanter, he hunted them down and killed many.
Yeah,
and he haunts the graveyard.
That's right.
I know the fellow who does the tours there, and I fair believe that his tomb is haunted. But although he was a judge, he had to carry out his job. And job is to follow the law. But personally himself, he didn't believe in witches and witchcraft. He did not believe it whatsoever. He just believed in the circumstances that the poor people were there.
Yeah.
And he writes that he came across a Midlothian witch who, I forget her name, but she pleaded guilty for witchcraft. And he was asking her, "Why have you pleaded guilty for witchcraft?" He says, I just want to know why have you said you're a witch, because you know what's going to happen next. And the sad tale is she said, the only reason I said I'm a witch is because if I say I'm not a witch and I get released, the stigma of me being here under witchcraft, under trial of witchcraft, I will be. No one will give me a house. No one will feed me. I won't get any meat from anybody. People will set their dogs in the street until I die. So it's quicker that I burn to death in a fire rather than have the torment that's coming to me if I'm released. Which, when you think about it, it's awful. I wrote about the Pitaween witches, and we have a witch who went under that exact same procedure. A woman called Beatrix Lang. She was very rich, and one of the first witches they found in 1704, and they found another 8 after her. But she was released eventually. She's one of the ones that survived, but she had to leave Pitaween. Her husband applied for safe conduct for her from the council, and the council replied, "There's no point in giving her safe counsel because she's going to be killed anyway. We can't stop it. She will be killed because she's in Mary Queen of Scots' bill for the Witchcraft Act in 1563. It says anyone associating, helping, abetting, aiding a witch, consulting a witch would be classified as one also. So if you've been in association with a witch, you're the husband of a witch. You're the sister of a witch.
That's weird, because that's what I was thinking. That's what I was thinking about, because I was thinking about what happened to the husbands of some of these women.
You've had it. Well, that's what I said. My ancestor got pulled up on a witchcraft trial and identified twice by 2 witches, and then her daughter, 40 years later, her daughter's on the flames as well, and that's how they could convict her so easy. Is because of association.
That's scary. It is scary. It just shows you what has happened. Can I see when they burnt the remains? What did they do with the remains? Did they just dump them into the local river or something like that?
No, good question. I can remember I mentioned that girl from St. Monans. Her name was Maggie Morgan. Well, Maggie Morgan. If you ever look at the church in St. Monans, its spire looks like a giant witch's hat.
Pictures.
It's quite amazing. But once they burnt her, it was tradition to scoop the witch's ashes up and carry them up to the top of the church, as a wee door in the roof there, and then you would sprinkle the ashes around this rim of the witch's hat, really, and it would blow into consecrated ground, and that's what they did with the witch. But you've got places like St. Andrews that if you see, you've got to remember England started off the witch hunt 6 months before we did, in 1662, and 6 months later we did it. They had Queen Elizabeth, and we had Mary Queen of Scots. So the two cousins, one Protestant, one Catholic. Now, we followed the Catholic way of destroying witches, which is to see them as heretics, and a heretic will be burnt.
Yes.
England was Protestant, so they saw witchcraft as a crime. So you could be hung or drowned. They didn't burn them in England. They hung or drowned them. That was it.
I heard
in
that.
Scotland. In Scotland, we burnt them. But there's places like St Andrews that used to have what they call a witch pool. Now, this witch pool was not for what you're thinking, duking witches. No,
That's what I was just about to.
We never did that in Scotland. There was maybe Aberdeen, and I think one other place that did that on one occasion. But certainly St Andrews, the witch pool was for putting the witches' ashes in, and then the tide would take it away. The witch pool was actually used to drown pirates. Lots of pirates got drowned there, and also fornicators.
Yeah.
If you're caught masturbating for the second time, that's what got done. You got tied to a post and duked.
I've heard about that place. And what was it? Oh, it was years. I'm 42 now. I can remember it. It was at some museum I was at, and I must have been about 9 years old. And I can remember the guy saying they used to chain the pirates to the rocks. They used to chain them, and the tide would come in, and it would drown them.
Yeah.
And then when the tide went out, they went out and unshackled them.
St Andrews has that on record a few times. I know that the Earl of Moray, so we're talking about 1560, 1570, certainly witnessed. He judged and witnessed pirates, and they got tied to the witches' pool and drowned in St Andrews. But it must have been common all over the place. I mean, there's pirates running up and down this coast.
Oh yeah. I mean, the coast of Scotland's famous for a lot of like Spanish galleons sinking and stuff like that.
I'm from Largo. Largo's where Robinson Crusoe comes from. Alexander Selkirk, and he was a pirate.
I used to go to holiday to Stranraer. Is it Sansalus? You know what I'm talking about, Sans. And I know that the Mully Galloway and the kind of Sansalus was famous for the Spanish galleons sinking. And still to this day, I know actually divers that actually watch my show, and they go and they look for the gold, but they've found some wrecks, but they've not found any gold yet. But can you imagine? I mean, what actually happened in the days? I mean, it's actually terrifying. What type of torture kind of did they do to them? Obviously, I've heard the hanging and the burning and stuff and the drowning and stuff, but what did they have any torture methods?
Are you talking witches or pirates here?
I'm talking witches.
Oh, where do I start? Okay. One of the favourites for Edinburgh was to tie ropes to their thumbs, pull them up over a beam, and then set candles to their feet. That's pretty bad. Another favourite method, I think this one came from out your way, is to once you came into the prison cell, you'd have all your clothes whipped off you, and you'd be given a sack to wear, basically.
Yeah.
A sack to wear. And what they used to do is that they'd soak this sack in vinegar and nothing else and force you to wear it. And after a while, the vinegar and the sack become one with your skin, and then they'd rip the sack off you, and all your skin would come with it.
Oh.
They had weights and measures that put in your feet. We have poor Finn, the North Berwick, one of the North Berwick teachers, from 1597. James VI witnessed his torture, where his feet went into this device called boots, and it was a metal device shaped like a box. And his foot went in it, and they added wedges of wood, and then they just kept adding wedges of wood until his legs were mangled. In the famous writings of his trial, it states the marrow came out of his own bones.
That is terrible.
I mean, that's his legs were finished. We certainly there's a proceed. How long have you ever gone without sleep? There's a question to you.
Me, 3 days.
3 days. That was pretty
Yeah.
bad. How did you feel at the end of that?
I felt terrible. I thought I was going to die. When I got to my bed, I slept for about 2 days straight. I
I
zonked
think
out.
3 days is about the maximum I've had. I used to do some crazy shifts in London at the BBC and on some
Yeah.
sets. We as long as we're working, we're earning money, so we just hammered into it.
Coffee
And
plays a big part.
we had American producers that loved us because we never took any breaks. We just crashed on. But I tell you, I'm suffering for it now. But I think 3.5 days is about my maximum.
Yeah.
I remember doing a shift like this and jumping on the 6 o'clock train to come up to Scotland and see a girlfriend. And I woke myself up snoring on the train.
Yeah.
But no, but the sleep deprivation was just one of the tortures that worked. And certainly in the, we'll go back to Maggie Morgan again. They used horns on her. Every sat in a corner. They had a rope that went round her head, and they would lead her like a sheep round the room, pulling this blowing rope. And anytime she got tired, they'd blow a horn on her face, and this is when you want this to stop.
I mean, that's
just confess you're a witch.
I mean, it's intense. I mean, I've seen things that they used to do, these special cages for them, but I think that was more the English that did that. I'm sure it was like cages that they put the witches in, and it was
something like that.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
That's a skull's bridle.
Yep.
Nasty device went over your head, and there's this piece here in your mouth, and you see this bulbous bit. This is where the rope would go, and they'd pull you around the town. You would normally have a plaque around a rope with a plaque around your head stating your crime, and you get led to the village, and they'd just be pelting you with all kinds of stuff. And this is just the start.
That is just intense.
That's just you getting led to the jail. Yeah.
Can we talk a wee bit about some of their videos? And guys, I suggest you go and watch Leonard's videos, because I've only watched a couple of them because I'm slowly working my way through them. But that one about the wee vases in the wall, could you tell us a wee bit about that? Because that was
now, for people. I'm like a witch historian. I'm working on at the moment with the authorities to open up which will be a witch trial museum in Leven, which is, look, this is the first to me mentioning this to anybody, but this will be happening next year now, and we're getting funds all arranged for it. So that's what I'm working on just now. But I also I've spent 30 years photographing and hunting ghosts before it became super popular with all the Scooby-Doo chaps. But I look at today's endless hunts and just laugh my head off at the fools that are doing them.
Oh, I know.
The one you mentioned, someone came to me. There's me and my friend Roger Wilson, who's not with me just now, but Roger Wilson. There's two of us, and we go investigating hauntings, and we're fairly sensible, and we've got our methods and old school. But we went to a house in Kennoway. Now, what had happened is this couple in Kennoway that lived in this lovely house for a single bungalow, a 2-room bungalow, and bungalows maybe about 150 years old. It's an old enough house in a nice location. Now she had a trapdoor to the loft in her hallway and a trapdoor to her loft in the kitchen. Now, the one in the hallway, she kept getting these slaters falling from the loft.
Yeah.
Now, slaters love the damp, so she
Oh,
went,
yeah.
"Oh no, I can't have this."
Yeah.
So she got her husband to jump up on the roof and see what was there, and he came down with this suitcase. He goes, "Look what I found." He came down with this suitcase, and he opened it up, and it's full of Masonic robes and
Ooh.
stuff, and but it's for a woman. It's a woman's garb. And I
Yeah,
didn't
that's
realize there's a female side to the Masons as well.
is that
But
the
anyway,
Eastern Star? The Eastern,
that's the one.
that's
Well
it,
done.
aye.
That's the one.
Yeah.
But anyway, they not caring a jot for this thing, or having a thought of putting it on eBay or anything. It went straight out with the trash.
Yeah.
Now, the minute they did this, the house came alive. They started seeing figures in the house, bangs, crashes. Poor woman would go in the kitchen and things would move around her. And then they called me. So they called me and my pal Rog, and so we went up to sit down with them. Now, they gave me their story, as I've just explained, and I went, "Okay, well, I've got a similar story to you." There was a couple that went up to Inverness, Fort William, way back in 1950, and they were English, and they moved up there, and they're going to be crofters. So they took over this crofter's house, and it was a bit overgrown, but it had a fair bit of land and everything in Fort William. And they found their view of the loch blocked by these massive roses. So they went, "No, they've got to go." So they cut down these roses. When they cut down the roses, the house came alive.
Oh, yeah.
House came alive, and they started seeing this figure about the house. I'll cut a long story short, but they found out that the previous owner was a disabled woman whose pride and joy was her roses.
Rosie.
And so when they cut the roses down, she came alive, and she haunted the hell out of them. She haunted them so bad that the house was dynamited. That was unfit to live in. It was dynamited, and there's nothing left of it today.
Wow.
Anyway, I told this story to our couple in Kenneway. I told this story to our couple in Kenneway, and I said, we got a feeling for the place, and so we arranged to come back in a week's time and set up our stuff and have a proper investigation. And so that was great. So we went home. The next morning, I get a phone call from my pal Rog, and he says, "You're not going to believe it. I've just had the owner of the house on the phone raging at me." And I goes, "What's the problem?" He goes, "He's just woke up in his bed this morning with his wife, covered in rose petals." Covered in rose petals. So I went, "Oh my God." And he says, he said he got up in the morning, went through and opened up the kitchen cupboard, and there's a rose. There's a red rose with all the petals off it. And he said, "This thing has heard you last night, and it's taken the piss out of us."
Yeah.
So anyway, we ripped over there. This is really interesting. This is proper poltergeist activity.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, of all the hauntings, I've been in the Enfield House. I've met Morris Goss. He took me there after what I caught in London. I was in the papers in London with something I caught in a hospital, and this is where he got in touch with me, and we became friends for a wee while. I think he died about 3 years later. But anyway, I've been in the Enfield House, and I spoke to one of the people that was at the Sochi school when the poltergeist in Sochi was going on. I had a witness to that.
Yeah.
I've been around. So we went to this house in Kenneway, and we sat down with tape recorders, and this thing came through, and it was raging. It was a sweary, very sweary ghost. And we got its voice on recordings to tell me where to go, and never want to swear on your program. But anyway,
that's fine.
It was very nasty. Anyway, while I'm sitting with a recorder going and asking questions to this thing, and it's answering, I'm on film with the owners of the house sitting watching me. And so we did this for about 2 hours, and then I stopped. And the woman says, "Do you want a cup of tea?" And I went, "Aye, that would be great." So she wanders into the kitchen, a long kitchen with a corridor, And she goes in and she just gets to the kettle, puts the kettle on, and then bang! And I went, what the fuck? And she starts to scream, and I'm looking around us, and we opens up one of the cupboards, and there's a load of smashed plates. The plates just exploded, and all we could hear was laughing. All we could hear laughing. And I went, this is incredible. So the women ran away, and we were left to deal with this thing. And it was, this thing was dedicated to its robes, and we were teasing it with Rangers and Celtic things. It was getting bloody nasty.
Oh my God.
But we went away, and the thing came alive. They started to see it as a figure. And we were there 2 or 3 times, and on the last time we got there, we just arrived as the couple are wandering the garden and in bits. And I says, "What's up?" And says, "You better go in the back room and just see what it's done." And we had the curtains in this bedroom. Ripped down, not the curtains, but the whole pelmet, the wooden frame, the whole thing had been ripped off the wall. I mean, that takes some doing, but it had gone to the other side of the room. I mean, this thing it had to have gone about 3-4 meters, and also this crystal vase had shattered on the windowsill without the curtains hitting it. It'd gone the other way. So it was mad, and from this stage, the owners started to panic, and they brought in a bloody priest. And so the priest did the hokey cokey or whoever he did, and made the thing go even worse. So it just pissed it off, and the owner was going to deal with it himself, and we never got invited back again. But he's still friends with us and sends us updates on what's happening. But that was vicious. That was that was probably the worst case I've ever seen. There's nothing more amazing when you've just witnessed something like that. And me and Roger sat in the car and we couldn't speak. We're trying to fathom, did that just happen? What we just saw, did that just happen? You know, the plates are exploding. And I said, that, you know, I've never seen anything like this.
There's actually a question in the chat, but I'll bring it up in a minute. Femoral Dials Paranormal. It's actually, did you ever try and bring any trigger things into that house, like maybe a Masonic robe?
Yeah, we had a Masonic hammer, you know, the wee gavel thing.
Yes.
We brought one of these in, and it didn't like it whatsoever.
That's strange, that, because it makes you wonder, because if they liked the Masonic Lodge and then you brought something like that in, it makes you wonder what it was really. I mean, the Masonic Lodge, you know, that it's a mystery what goes on in there. Yeah, I mean,
we see that as we're asking questions, this thing's given us a name, and I've got, you know, I'm on camera with the owners through the other room with Roger. We've got a television that's showing me sitting there, and so they're watching me asking questions.
Yeah,
and we didn't know. We didn't have any studies or any history on the house before we got there. We just turned up, and it gave its name. And when it gave its name, you could hear the owners go. And said that guy was a brutal drunk. He used to beat his wife up. We heard from the neighbours. He was the guy who owned the house before us, and he used to beat his own missus up, and he was an absolute alky. And I went, all right, well, that sounds like the guy we've got.
Yeah,
so
probably
he's
is.
still in the house, and wants his Masonic robes back.
He wants his robes back and a pint of beer. There's actually Emerald Dials Paranormals in the chat that I've got a really interesting question. What do you think is behind the Enfield House?
The Enfield poltergeist. Don't watch that nonsense. What's that film they did of it recently?
That's what she just mentioned that as the movie starts. You know,
do you see it? It's how the Americans see a British house.
Oh, I know.
it's a little
I know.
Kunstlerhaus from the outside, but once you go in, the rooms are
It's
absolutely
amazing.
massive.
Yeah,
The
aye,
rooms,
okay, the big high
one
ceilings.
of the
Oh,
rooms.
it's like
What
the
was it
TARDIS.
called? I can't remember the name of the film, but The Conjuring 2, was it? The Conjuring
I
2?
know.
But one of the bedrooms that they show in Conjuring 2 is about the size of the entire house.
I know.
So it's a pokey wee council house. And I was in Archway Hospital for about a year. My partner was very ill. She ended up
Yeah.
dying, but she was
Oh,
in the
sorry.
hospital for about a year in a
Mhm.
coma.
Oh,
Appendicitis. It's just grim. But
yeah.
in the hospital, I had Sunday papers of which I'd caught something in Pitaween Tower, and it made a double page in the Sunday papers. And of course,
Yeah.
they got the Sunday papers in the hospital, and they
Mhm.
came to they knew me, so they came to me, and they said, in the hospital down below us in the basements, our nurses don't go there on their own. They go there in threes because there's something moving around down there and they don't like it. So I went down there, cut long story short. Me and one of the administrators. Oh, we've got ghosts in this house too.
I've got
Someone
one
just
too. Don't
fell
worry
over.
about it.
I think I hope that's my cat. but
Got a visitation, loads of roses round about you tonight.
if there's anything moves behind me, tell me. But I caught a cracking photograph of Archway Hospital, and again, it's another one of my videos on YouTube.
Yeah.
The Archway leper boy, and it's from this photograph went in the Evening Standard, all editions of the Evening Standard, and eventually did about 30, 40 newspapers in the UK and abroad. And
Yeah.
so I got Morris Goss come to me. I'm in North London, he's in North London, and I met the old guy, and I was a fan. I'd read his book.
Mhm.
I read the book on him, sorry, with the Enfield Poltergeist, and
Yeah.
admired what he did, because he took a lot of flack, the guy.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, he was an old man when I met him, and I think he lived about another 3 years and died. But he was friends with the guy that had the Enfield House. The old
Mhm.
families moved out, so we went up, and he got me in. I got to go in to see the house. It's all modernized now. There's nothing at all of the 1970s, 80s case, but it was good to be in the house.
Yeah.
And the old cooker was still there. They had
Really?
an old cooker that came out the wall. It was still there.
Yeah.
It was the process of getting moved, but it was nice to have been in the place. But when you see that
Yeah.
film, The Conjuring, you just
Oh,
laugh out loud at
they're
how
rubbish.
they've
Well, that movie industry is
Americanized the British
absolutely
house.
rubbish. Does it have a basement, that house? Because in the
No,
movie,
no, no,
he was doing it in the basement and it's flooding and it's full of water. And
no. It's just
the
all
houses don't have
Americanized.
the
Don't.
houses don't have basements.
It's a pokey wee council house.
I know.
Living room, kitchen, and upstairs is three bedrooms or
Aye.
so, and a bathroom. And it's perfect for a wee family, but
Aye.
you can't swing a cat, that's for sure.
See, it's I was interested with that house. I'll tell you the house that does interest me is at the Black Monkey Pontefract.
Yeah.
That house has interested me. That the Enfield haunting, that was quite interesting. But the Black Monkey Pontefract, that's an interesting one. I've always
There's a
wondered
lot of
about that.
evidence being caught, and it's this. It's like now every single paranormal group in there does the same old
Yes.
thing, and it's creak. Oh, it must be the thing. It gets a bit boring, but
It does.
the original they were there for years. They got a lot of evidence, a lot of good stuff.
Yes.
And yeah, I admired what they did.
I found it was quite an interesting case because obviously there was the materialization. I will say this, right? There's Most Haunted was one of the most fakest shows in the history of paranormal. When
You
I'm
think?
there, there's no just them. Believe me, there's ones that top them now, like Ghost Adventures and all that. That's all fake, absolute rubbish. I don't know if folk can watch that pish, right? That is just my Scottish discrimination. Yeah, but there was some evidence got there. I found the one with the knife getting chucked about. I think that was I don't know. I just think that was they were being stupid. Most hunters being stupid in that. But there was the materialization, which I did find interesting. and how the next door neighbours would find things that was in the house. I mean,
Yeah.
have you ever witnessed anything like that? Have you ever witnessed, like, say,
No,
for
never
instance,
seen anything
like,
such as like that. I mean, I'm bad enough for losing things as it is in the house we
yeah,
here, but we've we've always managed to keep track of. We come with a lot of equipment,
oh yeah,
but I mean, the thing is, if you want to be serious, and you want to be really serious,
yeah,
I've had eight photographs now in the national papers of things I've
wow,
caught, 8, and that's over about 30 years now.
yes,
And a lot of these photographs came with weeks upon weeks of sitting in the same place with a
yeah,
cold bum. And it's like fishing. The only way to describe it is like fishing. If you want to be
yeah,
serious about this, get your medium and send them home. What a load of nonsense.
yeah.
How can you prove anything a medium says? Go away.
There's
I've had hundreds of medium. You know,
yeah,
I collect stuff in the witch trials. Okay,
yeah,
so I used to get mediums coming to me all the time, and they'd come to my house and say, "I want to meet you first and talk to you." And I'd meet them first and talk to them, and I'd hand them this wicked looking spike.
mhm,
And I mean, they know if they've done their research on me. They know I do witch trials. They know I own like witch prickers and stuff like that. So they know what they've just been handed, and they'll freak and they'll go,
mhm,
"Oh, I got blood and I got pain and they'll carry on and on and on and on and on." And I go, "Brilliant, yeah, excellent." And I won't let up. I'll just
yeah,
let them say their thing, and then we'll go off to wherever they want me to go.
yeah,
And but that thing I've just handed them, I mean, that my mate's dad made that.
yeah.
So, there you go.
I mean, I have been
Nonsense.
to, like, there's been locations I've went to and everybody's like, "Oh, it's haunted. Oh, it's haunted. Oh, it's terrible. There's terrible." Never. There's places I've went to, and I'll tell you something. It's great. There's a graveyard near me. I've got quite a few old graveyards near me, as you know, because I do the videos and stuff like that. And one
Uh-huh.
person says, "Oh, it's terrible. It's a dark atmosphere." I fell asleep in the summertime in the graveyard on a chair. There was a chair. I sat down. I thought the birds were tweeping, the flowers, the lovely smells. I was on. Fell asleep for about 2 hours, and I woke up. I was like, I was wandering about.
I'll give you my ghost story of a cemetery, and it's a good one. Largo Cemetery, right? I have no interest in Largo Cemetery whatsoever. There's never
Yeah,
been anybody come to me with any kind of things until one of my lectures. And then this woman came to me and says, "You ever investigated Largo Cemetery?" I went, "I've got no call to go there. Nobody's ever said anything." And she
yeah,
says, "Because I was there one day 10 years ago,
mhm,
and I was putting down flowers down at a grave, and there was nobody there, nobody around me. I put down flowers next to a grave. Next minute, there's a man walking right past me. He looked like a farm labourer. He had string around his trousers. He had a cap on his head,
yeah,
a black cap." And I watched him walk through a wall. He walked through this wall,
mhm,
and the woman was terrified, but she followed him. And he says he walked down this field track, which they're known today as the coffin walk.
yeah,
And he went about 50 yards and disappeared. So I went, "This is very interesting." So anyway, I started asking questions about this coffin walk. Anybody got any stories about the coffin walk?
mhm,
Another woman came to me, said, "I was coming from Keel's Den, which is about a mile away. This coffin walk's quite a distance." And she said, "I had my kids and we're coming out of the den on the walk and we're on the way to Largo when this man suddenly," and she just gave the same story. "This man went right past me, scared my
yeah,
kids because we never saw him. And we're in the middle of a field.
mhm,
And he went right past us and he walked for about 20, 30 yards. She described him the same and he disappeared." I went, "Right, that's two sightings.
yeah,
This is so let's go to Largo Cemetery." So me and Rog, well, I think last year, went to the cemetery, and they've got this plague pit in the cemetery where it was a big, huge,
mhm,
enormous monkey puzzle tree, and it's just like you can see the ground. It's in furrows. It's all lumpy. You can see
mhm,
where the bodies were put.
yeah,
Anyway, so we're let's do a wee EVP.
mhm,
Let's ask some questions. So we started asking questions, and then this foreign language comes through, and we recorded it. And I
Yeah.
says, I'm telling you, that's Polish. That guy's speaking
Ooh.
Polish. I worked with enough Polish folk.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking the Polish army was here during the war. They were living over in that field there by this old house. And so anyway, let's see what this is saying. And it kept coming up with the name. I can't even pronounce it myself. Zhedinsky, however they pronounce it.
Yeah.
This is what the guy was given his name. And so I sent the recording to my Polish pal in London and says, what's he actually saying? Can you make this out? And he says, it's saying hello Baldy. Hello. It's saying hello Baldy in Polish, and laughing and call himself Rudinsky. So anyway, the next thing we did was we came back to the cemetery with a Polish speaking girl, and she thought the whole thing was a laugh, and we told her up front what we were trying to do, and says, I want me to ask questions, but you to relay it in Polish. We're going to record it and see if he comes back again. So this is what we did, and she did all this.
Yeah.
And she thought this was a great laugh and giggling and laughing until we played back the recording, and he mentioned her. He mentioned her as being very pretty Polish girl, and she freaked. I went out here now. I'm leaving. So she went and sat in the car, and we carried on. Anyway, so we had this Rzydinsky guy back again, and I started doing some research. Went to Fife Council, got their grave records and stuff. I mean, there's hundreds and hundreds of folk in that grave. The graveyard, although the plague pits 1600s, it wasn't actually a cemetery till about 1880. So we got over 100 years worth of graves there. Anyway, so let's go through the names, and we got one Rudinsky guy, Rudinsky, and he died in something like 1972.
Yeah,
but he was one of the Polish paratroopers who dropped off in Arnhem, and they got slaughtered out there. But the guy lived, came back, married a local girl. I don't think he lived very long, but in 1972 he died. But anyway, so where's he buried? And the Fife Council couldn't tell us where he was buried, so we had to do it the old way. Let's hunt down the stones. Now we sat in a seat across from the monkey puzzle to do this recording. So let's go where we started. So we start in a seat. Would you believe it? 3 graves behind us. 3. Rudinsky. There he is.
Yeah,
he was right behind us.
Yeah.
And that's fabulous.
It's quite interesting. There's a place near me, and it's I'll actually show you where it is after the show. I'll tell you about it. It's a little graveyard, and it's near a little village called Bigger. You know where Bigger is? It's near
Bigger,
Lanark. Yeah, right.
It's on the borders, is it not?
No, it's near Lanark. You know, everybody knows where Lanark is. It's right next to Lanark. And there's a graveyard there, and I actually did a video there, and it's got a lot of Commonwealth war graves. A lot. And there's actually, it's weird how you said Polish, because there was a load of graves. There was like 10 graves, and they were all killed at the same time. They were a part of a unit, and they were all Polish, and they were all killed. Yeah,
I would be surprised if that's Arnhem graves, because they got mown down before they even reached the ground. The paratroopers.
Well, I think they were paratroopers actually.
I bet you that's Arnhem.
I'll share. I've got pictures and that. I'll send you them, and I think, and I'll send you the video so as you can look. But it's quite interesting you say about seeing the spirit walking, because I know someone. He was down south, and he was working at it was a kind of open cast thing, and his job was to sit in the Land Rover, right, to make sure, because the way was getting bothered with like protesters and stuff coming in, and they had to like pick up the CB and say, listen, there's somebody in here, stop the machines. And this was getting on late at night. This was maybe about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, and he's eating his piece. He's sitting eating his piece in his Land Rover, and he sees somebody walking across in a monk's uniform with the robe, and he's like, oh my God, it's a protester. We've got another protester. So he picks up the radio and brings the entire complex to a shutdown. Nothing there. They searched the entire area, nothing there. But they were digging away, and about a month later, they dug out a section. And what did they come across? They come across, like, it was mines, but it had been done by the monks.
Yeah.
and they'd actually dug it out. So I don't know if he's maybe witnessed like maybe an apparition that's just wandered out in front of him and just disappeared into like the night.
Well, I had a fellow. I mean, we made a film of it as well. A fellow that used to work he lived in Kennedy, but worked in Leven. Now,
Yeah.
you got a mile and a half road. He was an English fellow, and he used to take the long walk in the mornings to Leven. I think he worked in Iceland or something. But he took a walk down there one day, and he was testing out his phone he was getting all the cracking sunsets and stuff, and he got his phone out ready, and right in front of him, he said, "I saw a monk." I saw a monk, and right in front of me, and he got a photograph of it, and it's on my story, and so we did research, and where he saw the monk is actually an old walk that takes you to St Andrews, where all they used to go on pilgrimages and stuff. And also, I found that there's a castle long gone, Jury Castle, which is in the forest just down the road from it, and that was once owned by the Bishop of Dunfermline. So there would be monks all over that place at one time. And then once again, I mentioned this area of the road where I'd seen a monk, and then up comes two more people saying, "I drove past one night and I saw a monk, and I thought I hit him." And so he's been seen a few times.
I don't know if it's maybe like there's places like that near me, like it's like old like chapels in the middle of nowhere, and I mean the middle of nowhere. I mean like you'll have like moorland. For like for 6 miles of the moorland in the very centre there'll be like what's left of a chapel. And I know farmers and stuff that have been up at night just having a drive, checking in their stock and stuff like that. And they said to me, they said, "I'm sure I've seen a monk. I'm sure I've seen somebody with a cloak on." And when I panned my light in my Land Rover round about, there was nobody there. There was nobody there. And it makes you wonder, is that maybe the stone tape theory? Is that maybe just something, maybe that monk's been walking
Well,
that road?
we'll never know. An echo from the past.
Yes.
You know, my sister died when I was 27. And we buried her on the day we buried her. I saw her in the house, sitting on my bed, and I freaked, absolutely freaked. Then I felt embarrassed about it. I'm freaking because that's my sister. You know, I shouldn't be scared of my sister. But I saw her clear as day. Sitting there on the edge of my bed. And this is what got me into this business.
That's what got me into it. Takes I seen her there. That's what got me into it too. I mean,
it's when you can identify that person.
Yeah.
I mean, I know what my sister looked like, and there she was sitting, smiling at me, sitting on my bed. I thought,
before I end the show, what is your opinion on the afterlife? What do you think happens?
I think there's got to be a tragedy. I think it's going to be a tragedy to end your life for you to leave that imprint here. Some sort of it's difficult to fathom. We'll never know for sure until we're dead ourselves. But in the meantime, I mean, when we're getting recordings out the blue from someone who's not there, someone who I can identify died like 50 years ago, like that cemetery, that's very, very interesting.
It is.
Called me a
definitely,
baldy.
guys. Definitely, guys. You need to please go and watch Leonard's videos. Please buy all his books. Christmas is coming up. It's that time of year.
Oh, yes.
So I would like to thank you, Leonard, for coming on the show. Honestly, it's been fantastic. We'll need to get you back again one night.
No problem. You're a good lad to speak to.
Thank you. It's good to talk to another Scottish person because I interview a lot of Americans and Canadians, and I never really interview Scottish people.
Colonials.
Which is unusual. Yeah,
call them what they are.
Yeah. Exactly. So I'll talk to you behind the scenes, Leonard, and I would like to thank everybody for coming tonight and all my American friends that's going to watch this probably at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. Thank you very much. And we'll see you all soon. Just going to end the stream.
Nice to be on the show. Thank you very much.
No problem.
Thank you for joining us on this exciting adventure with Ghost Squad Scotland. Our team of experienced ghost hunters use the latest technology to explore the paranormal and uncover the truth about the unknown. Don't forget that we're affiliated with Spirit Shack, the UK's premier ghost hunting equipment store, so you can trust our equipment to be top-notch. Plus, we have exclusive Ghost Squad Scotland merch available on our Zazzle store, so you can show your support for the team in style. And if you can't get enough of our ghost hunting adventures, be sure to tune into the Bald and Bonkers TV network to catch our show in action. Content creators can even have their own content syndicated on the network, or create their own custom online TV channel by visiting baldandbonkers.net. Thank you for your support. And remember to always keep an open mind as we continue to explore the mysteries of the paranormal with Ghost Squad Scotland.